Last week, we talked about how we were down to only one Marvel show per week, and that's still true this week, but we're going to get you ready because this week ahead is the premiere of Cloak and Dagger. So find out a lot more about Cloak and Dagger. We're going to talk about Legion, Silver Sable and the Black Cat, and so much more. Marvel TV Weekly starts now.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
That's right, we are here to kick out the jams on Marvel TV Weekly. Song that was featured on this week's Legion. And when I was watching the episode, I'm like, great, I have a song for this week. And then Anthony in the booth asked me, what's the song? And I'm like, I can't remember. So I had to look it up. And then I remembered, I'm just stupid. But anyway, welcome to Marvel TV Weekly. I'm Christian Bladt, joined as always by Amy Cassandra Martinez.
That is me. I am she. I'm here.
And Kari Lane.
Hey, how's it going?
She is also here. And as I mentioned in the booth, the one, the only, Tony B. Tony. Anthony, thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you preemptively for all of your help. And we're going to review the one show that we have, which is Season 2, Episode 9 of Legion. We're going to spend a lot of time previewing Cloak and Dagger, which someone on this panel has already seen the first 4 episodes. So you can just go ahead and ruin them for all of us, or
I will.
Would be more respectful if we got some spoiler-free information.
Course. Yeah.
But I'll also touch a little bit on the history of the characters from the comic books, who first premiered in 1982 in Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man number 64. So it's been a while. They have been around. But first and foremost, speaking of Spider-Man, let's talk about a little bit of news. The Silver and Black movie that some people are excited about, our recently departed, still alive but moved, Michael Shirley and I were both excited because we like these characters. The Silver and Black movie, which is part of the Spider-Man universe, a property owned by Sony, so this would not be an MCU film, but it would have the Black Cat and the Silver Sable in there. And this seems to be what they're doing with that universe, the Sony properties, is the Spider-Man movies Marvel's involved with, and then they're going to do the spin-offs like Venom, and really not have Spider-Man in them. And I guess that's a recipe for something, but it doesn't seem like a recipe for success. But what's encouraging is they've decided to take this movie off the release schedule for next year and spend a little bit more time developing it. These are a couple of fun characters. The Black Cat was actually a love interest for Spider-Man right before he finally got back together with Mary Jane and asked her to marry him. So they were out on the town a lot together.
They were a fun couple in the animated series as well. Like I didn't read as detailed into the comics when I was younger, but I remember them on the cartoon, and they were so fun together. Like, she was super flirty, and he didn't even know how to handle that. Because he's like, whoa, who is this beautiful lady? And it's so into
My
me.
favorite thing about Felicia Hardy, the Black Cat, is that she loved Spider-Man, but couldn't stand Peter Parker.
Right?
Like, she didn't want him to
That's
take the
awkward.
mask off, which is, hey, look, people are into all sorts of things.
They got
I
their
guess.
own things, yes.
Yeah, it's just like, no, leave the mask on. But legitimately, she's just like, no, I don't want to see that.
But at least with Spider-Man, it kind of makes sense. Like, you still see her whole face. Like, that's the kind of mask of like, you don't recognize me. How do you not know it's me?
It's like, I don't know who that is. Yeah, the woman in her 20s with white hair. Who could that possibly
so
be?
Obvious.
But it's anyway. She's a fun character. Spider-Man and Black Cat were dating right when I first started reading comics. So this was in my wheelhouse, and I love them together. This is a great cover for those watching on YouTube. This is exactly what I was talking about. I think it's Spectacular Spider-Man 87. And you'll see her reacting to Peter taking the mask off. And it's not because she's surprised as to who he is. She doesn't care who he is. She's just
Not
repulsed. Not by what Peter looks like. She's just like, no. I don't want to know that there's a guy under that suit. And no one asked. No one's interested. But this is Spectacular Spider-Man 87. Actually the first Spider-Man comic I ever bought. Peter Parker's Spectacular Spider-Man number 89. So just 2 months later, I was right in here. But I later went back and got this one.
Also, how is it in the comic? Because I remember a problem on the cartoon show was she's a little more chaotic good in terms of like she wasn't evil, but she just did things like did some thieving and stuff.
Yeah.
And he just was not okay with that. He was too good.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot like, you know, to borrow an example from another universe, like Batman and Catwoman. You know, there's definitely a thing there, but it's like,
Hey,
you know,
she's a cat too.
Right, exactly. It's like, you know, I really would like you to not be doing these things, you know? So I think that, you know, it was never really going to work out.
What was the age difference? I feel like she's older.
No, I thought,
it's about the same. I mean, by the time they're dating, Peter's actually in grad school. And yeah, they let him get older at one point before they kind of reined that back in, and they let him get married before they had Mephisto undo that. And there's a lot of terrible storytelling in the 21st century for Spider-Man. But fortunately, I haven't really read Spider-Man since the 90s regularly. So in my mind, there's still some great stories.
Well, that was a weird thing with the cartoon is they look like they're in college, but they're in high school. Like watching it, I kept thinking, oh yeah, they're in college because they just look like adults. Like they don't look like children whatsoever. So then, yeah, like she wasn't exactly in his classes, but was in his periphery.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't like older woman or anything like that.
And the Silver Sable is sort of more of like a vigilante for hire kind of character, and she's fun. Well, is there something in the chat?
Zayas Bilou in the chat says,
I love that Zayas Bilou's always there.
Yes, we have a live chat going. If you're watching this live, welcome. And then later on, please comment down below if you're watching this later. Zayas Bilou says, I remember, didn't she have a relationship on the show with Kraven eventually? I don't recall, but
Kraven
like
the
that's...
Hunter.
Seems like maybe something more, but then that's weird if they were in high school.
If you want to read a great story, a great collection, one of the best Spider-Man stories I ever read, it's a 6-part story called Kraven's Last Hunt. And you might get a sense from the title as to something that might happen in that story. It ran over the course of 2 months. There were 3 Spider-Man books at that time, so it just ran through each of them and had the same creative team. And that is, I know Kraven was always sort of like, is not a character that you took really seriously, but it's such great storytelling there. I can't recommend that enough. Kraven's Last Hunt, and easily found, you know, digitally. Or if you like the old-fashioned, you know, print books.
Oh, well, Zaya says it might have been Kraven or Morbius. Not sure who it was. Morbius was
the vampire, yeah.
That was a fun storyline in the cartoon, for sure.
So the reason we're talking about all this is I love to go down memory lane, but also because they're redeveloping the movie. And Amy, when you hear that, are you encouraged that, they're going to take the time and maybe try to get it right?
Yes. Yeah, I know people have issues with a movie taking longer to be released and to actually just be made, but I'm fine with it. Especially, I mean, Captain Marvel was actually supposed to come out like this year, right? Like this summer, and right?
Yes. Maybe in the fall. I forget exactly what the original plan was, but yeah, they took some more time. Yeah,
instead of Ant-Man
and
the Wasp. But I'm like, no, that's fine. Take your time with it. You need to make it good. You know, it's fine.
Yeah, and people often talk about when there's reshoots on movies. They're like, oh, it's in trouble. And look, sometimes, yes, the movie's definitely in trouble. But most movies have reshoots. It just depends on how much of the reshoots you have.
Deadpool had some of that. And then New Mutants is having a lot of
New Mutants is being, like, pretty much completely redone. It's going to come out a year and a half after it was supposed to.
Yeah.
And I don't know, the trailer that I saw for New Mutants made it look really cool. Like, it was going to be...
The original trailer looked awesome.
It was going to be a mutant, like... X-Men
movie.
Universe, but a horror movie. And, you know, maybe that's something that Tony B. Tony would have liked. It would have been an X-Men movie, but it would have been a horror movie. So
I was eating that up.
Yeah, and I was so excited, and then it was just like, oh, yeah, it's way down the line, because they want Dark Phoenix to come out before it, apparently.
I believe it's, like, set for August of next year.
Yep, and it was going to come out in February of this year at one point.
Right.
So that's a long wait. But anyway... so we'll have a long wait for Silver and Black as well. We'll see how Venom does too, because if say it doesn't light the world on fire, then maybe they'll take even more time with that one. So anyway, that's sort of like the big news. I saw a fun story. If Anthony will click on the link to it, we can kind of look at some images, and we'll have a very brief conversation that'll stem from this. But a Marvel fan set the Guinness record for the most Marvel tattoos. And I think we need to see just how many he has when Anthony's able to bring it up. And it's interesting because he only started in 2011. And here it is 7 years later, and he's set the record. And, I mean...
He's running out of canvas if he wanted to add any more.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And, for some reason...
zoom in.
Yeah, we're zooming in on the legs, and we really
there's
see...
some space on those toes.
Yeah, there's some space on those toes. And
oh, my gosh.
Woof.
I see Venom there on the left knee.
Yeah.
Spider-Man above him.
I mean, look, this guy has something that he likes.
Some
I mean,
space on that
he's got you know, the images that I see, he's got Thanos, he's got the Green Goblin, he's got Galactus. He's got great characters, and it begged the question, if you were going to get a Marvel tattoo, who would you get? Now, I don't have any tattoos, and at 42, I'm not about to start. And I was trying to think of, like, who I would really want to get. And I'm like, do I want Spidey because I've, you know, been a fan for so long? And then I'm like, or do you want something a little bit more subtle? Like Lockheed from the X-Men is Kitty Pryde's pet dragon.
And
he's like little, and then it's like, oh, it's a dragon. You know, it doesn't scream like, oh, yeah, no, I'm absolutely 100% totally a nerd. Look, I got Spider-Man on me. But
you want the deep cut image.
Yeah, well, definitely.
Yeah?
I know. So I would want to go somebody like that, or maybe like a little bit more of an obscure villain. Or if I'm going to get a character, maybe I get like a costume that people don't think of. You know, like Cyclops, where he looks a little different or something, although I definitely don't want Cyclops. So I will open it up to everybody in the chat. If you were going to get a Marvel tattoo, let us know. If you're chatting live, let us know. If you're watching the archive, we can share this in a future week. But I will open up to the ladies here on the panel. Kari, if you were going to get a Marvel tattoo.
I was going to say real quick before that, though, apparently the chat's a bit like, whoa, for that gentleman with the tattoos. Zayas Bilou says, I'm okay with tattoos, but come on, man. Then Star Drew says, I'm not cool to essentially get ink. I'm having trouble reading.
Is he not cool enough to?
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah.
Silver Watcher, though, is like, that could kill you, though. Depends how you get your tattoos and all that.
It's true.
Silver Watcher says, I get Luke Cage tattoo.
That'd be a good one. I'd want him in the costume, though, from the 70s, like with the headband and the flowing yellow shirt.
Well, that's your more deep cut.
Yeah,
right?
well, that's what you need, exactly.
Someone was saying I have one. No, I do not have a Marvel tattoo as of yet, but I was thinking about that too, of like what specifically. I like the idea of Spider-Man, but then, because like, that was a comic I was reading as a kid, so that's more like a special like spot. But then actually the more specific one, I was really into Spider-Man 2099, so I'm like, oh, that might be a more
that's
fun
a cool
like
look, yeah.
And it looks cool too. I even have like a figure Barbie doll size of him. So I'm like, yeah, maybe that might be the one I would go for. But or I've seen it where some people have like, you could just get the spider drawing or like the red, but Xavier Clark says the Black Panther necklace.
Oh, that'd be pretty cool.
That's a good one.
You know, it just gave me a thought. Another one you can do, get the Iron Fist. I don't mean a picture of Danny, the actual Iron Fist like tattoo that he has on his chest. You could really go in on that. Maybe I get a little Danny Rand on my shoulder just to be like, you know what? He needs people to like him too. Amy, if you did get one, hypothetically, who do you think would be your guy or gal?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny because you already said exactly what I would get. I'd get a tiny little spider.
That'd be cute.
Right here.
You know, Spidey has, I don't know that he uses them anymore, but he had these little spider tracers that he would use. He'd like throw them on a car so you could find it.
Cool,
so if you got the spider tracer right here, you'd be like, anytime you need to find me, Spidey, I'm right here.
But then also like the webs.
Oh, like the web shooters?
Yeah.
Man, the web shooters would be a pretty, I mean.
That'd be a specific one
too.
too.
You definitely need to like wear sleeves a lot to cover them up. But when you wanted to show up, that's true.
Zayas Bilou says, if I get one, I don't plan on doing so, but probably a blue Marvel, Power Man, and Black Panther tattoo is what I get.
Those are great.
Three.
Yeah.
Incan TV says Power Man and Iron Fist.
I love the combination. I love Luke and Danny together, and I am all in on that.
What would you get?
Well, that's why
You've kind of said it.
I mean, I'm thinking, like, I think because I'm having trouble committing to the tattoo. I had no problem committing to my wife, but committing to a tattoo, that's why I feel like a small, modest Lockheed the Dragon.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure that there's a part of me that would like, yeah, but what if I have like Wolverine with his claws out? Like, Anthony, if you can indulge me and find the image for Uncanny X-Men 207, where it's a fairly well-known cover. It's been turned into T-shirts and posters and things. And Wolverine is ripping through the cover of the book.
Oh, do that
so
like
I
your
could have
flesh?
him, like he's like ripped through, just ripped through my flesh, And if you're gonna do it, you probably do it as like a back tat where it's like huge.
You
and
could. Back of your arm or leg.
That sounds like
But
it would
if
hurt.
it's in your back, you'd be like a comic book. How cool.
That's true. I mean, because look at that. Like, how cool would that be?
Cool.
And of course, I would get the brown and gold costume
course you
because
would.
everyone knows who watches this show how I feel about the yellow stripy. Thank you for finding that so quickly, Anthony.
We have Yale in the chat. Yay!
Yay! She's gonna see herself in a little bit when we talk about Cloak and Dagger. She filmed a nice piece for us.
She has a great point. I get the Xavier School logo X.
Oh, that's
a good one.
That's what I was just thinking of too.
So
Yes.
that's true. There's something to be said for getting that, or just the 4 for the Fantastic Four, or the A for the Avengers. You could do any one of those things.
I was actually thinking.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking some sort of variation of this.
Oh, I like this. This is
that's
great.
cool.
What for anybody that's not watching us visually, Anthony has a great image that it's the Peter Parker where we have half of the Spider-Man mask on his face, which is an effect that they would use a lot in the comics when his spider sense would go off. It was just sort of to like let you know, like, something's going on, but he's also not in uniform or costume yet.
Tony, would you get the classic image like this, like the old school face?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty tasteful.
Yeah.
And
That'd be an easy one to do.
Yeah, and contain it, and it can be contained really small in a small area. So I'd get it like, I don't know, around my chest area or something.
There you go.
Well, look at all this ink that we're not getting.
That's great, guys.
Well, more for a girl could get it too, but like imagine a dude getting the X-Men logo where they kind of had like on their badges, on their suits, like on your chest. I mean,
That'd
a
be
lady
pretty
could
cool.
too, but it depends on how low you go of what you would see. Like right here, like the comm link kind of a thing.
Yeah, that's. Look for Jim Lee X-Men #1. You'll see Cyclops has it on in that image, I think.
I mean, I don't
know
think
exactly
all of them wore it, but...
No, but Cyclops is the one... sorry, there's 5 covers. So that's my bad. But yeah, right there, that image of Cyclops, you'll see it, that he's got the red badge on there. Not the belt, but the...
Yeah, right up there with the belt.
Yeah. Anyway.
Incan TV says the Eye of Agamotto from Doctor Strange.
Wow, that'd be great.
That's a good one.
What about, this just gave me the idea, what about an Infinity Gauntlet with all the stones on your hand? And you can't hide it. So you got to really be into it. You got to just want everybody to know that you are ready to get rid of half of the population of the universe.
Well, I don't have hand tattoos, but I went in, it was getting close to that, just so you know, anything on your hands or fingers fades a lot faster because you don't realize how often you wash your hands and do stuff with your hands. So,
look,
suggestion of you thinking hand tattoos.
I would only need the Infinity Gauntlet for a few minutes for me to get everything done, so it's fine. I could get rid of all my enemies,
here
of
we
which
go.
there are many.
Chris Robinson says, what about the arc reactor on your chest?
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
I love all these ideas. Who knew
guys
that
have
this was
great ideas.
Yeah, no, who
It's
knew that this was going to be the best topic we've ever had on the show?
Everyone's so excited. They're like, oh, wait, if you do have a X-Men and Marvel anything tattoo, leave a description what you have and tell us what you have. That's awesome. And tweet at us later. We want to know. That's so cool.
I just thought of another one. It'd be the same variation of like that Spider-Man one, but instead of it'd be Spider-Man's mask, and then the other half would be Deadpool's mask. Because I like both of them.
Yeah, there you go.
I like that. That's fun.
Apparently some people are saying Scream Queen. Silver Watch 30 says Carnage would be creepy tattoo, but cool. And then Scream Queen back. Not exactly.
I'm not quite sure I know what that one means. I could have pretended.
Sorry,
Could have
I'm like,
pretended.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm like, there was the show Scream Queens, but...
Well, anyway,
That'd be fun.
this is fun. We can definitely revisit this. And if you have, look, if you want to send us, you can. I know we're supposed to save our Twitters and things for the end, but you can tweet. Just tweet at me, I guess, is the easy way to do at Christian DMZ. There are a number of ways that you can send it to at AfterBuzz TV, all that. But if you want to make sure that I see it and I want to include it in the show, and no weird tattoos, all right? just have it be a Marvel
PG,
tattoo.
please.
Yeah, exactly.
PG-13.
At least that guy had his underoos on in that picture.
Yes.
Someone you would show your mother.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Something you'd show your own mother. All right.
Oh, okay.
I like the way that I like those rules
smart.
there.
I don't know. There could be some very forward-thinking people.
Let's not go there.
Yeah, we could get some tattoos from Norman Bates. But anyway, so that'll be fun, and we can revisit that in the future.
Yeah.
And if anybody on the panel does get a Marvel tattoo, please let us know.
Does henna count?
Sure, that'll be fun.
we'll be like,
Get
that's the best way to test it out.
Oh, yeah.
You're like, I'm already
Get it
I
on a
could not commit to something like that.
Get a henna tattoo on a Sunday afternoon so that you can show it off
there
Sunday
you
night
go.
when we're here.
Yeah.
One other news story that I saw that jumped out at me, it's sort of a brief thing. IndieWire, the website, says not a single MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe film, has female characters on screen for more than 40% of the time. Now, that doesn't sound great, and we can talk about that in general, but I will say 10 months from now, we can revisit this topic.
Yes.
Ant-Man and the Wasp and Captain Marvel are both... I mean, I guess I'm just assuming about Ant-Man and the Wasp. She's in the title. I have to feel like she's going to get at least 50% of the movie, probably more. At least, even if she's on screen with Paul Rudd. But then also Captain Marvel is the star of the movie. But is it something, I'll ask you first, Amy, that you've noticed in these movies that there's some great female characters, but at the end of a movie, are you ever like... Really could have used more of them, you know. Can you think of an example of?
Yes.
Domino.
Please share Domino. Wow, that's a great one.
Yes. Domino. And
Domino
Deadpool,
standalone
too.
movie should come soon.
Oh
but-
yeah, totally
Yes.
down. Origin story, that'd be great.
Also, Infinity War. Honestly, I think that was the first time where I really, Black Panther.
Black Panther had a lot of great women characters, and then also we saw some of those same characters interacting with like Scarlet Witch and Black Widow. That stuff was all
be
great.
more.
That's what it is.
But
that I wanted more.
that's the problem is when you get a little of it, you're like, hey, why wasn't there more of that?
Yeah.
You know, and when there's none of it, you might think of it afterwards, but in the moment, you're like, well, that ended
Keep it
really
going.
That ended
Yeah.
really quickly.
Exactly. Well, and even Scarlet Witch, but no, Black Widow.
Right.
Widow
She was
and
barely in that movie.
Yeah, at Infinity War, I'm like,
And
can we have more?
Anthony
please?
has found a great image of some of the best women of the Marvel Universe because we've got the Ms. Marvel incarnation of Captain Marvel. We've got Jean Grey. We've got Sue Storm. We've got Medusa. What up, Inhumans?
Wait, is that She-Hulk?
That is
Yeah.
She-Hulk. And that is
Spider.
that's
what
one
is
of
it?
the versions of Spider-Woman, the
Yeah.
kind of the cool 70s red costume. There is the Wasp right there,
Yeah.
but then we've got Storm.
Black Cat?
Looks like
Black
Kitty
Cat
Pryde.
is there. Kitty
She's
Pryde is
sitting.
there, sitting low. This, yeah.
And we
See,
got Gwen
Gwen
Stacy
and
in
Mary
the back.
Jane.
Yeah. yeah, that's true.
Who's this like little girl?
Yeah.
sitting here?
I don't know which one you're pointing at.
The very bottom one sitting down
I
next
can't
to
tell.
it.
If you
like a
zoom in
hat
on it,
on.
maybe I'll have a better.
She has a hat on. Yeah.
That's weird. The hat.
I want to cosplay as that. That looks comfortable.
Yeah, and she's like on a phone or
She
something.
looks like it's like a mouse. Something.
I don't know if that's so.
Nice booty zoom in.
Colossus's sister Ileana has been a child and also been like aged up to like a 16, 17-year-old.
It could be
so
Magic.
I think that exactly. That's Magic is Colossus's sister, and I think that might be Ileana as a little girl again. I'm just guessing. If somebody who's watching on YouTube sees that, please let us know. Something good in the chat, Kari?
Stardew says somebody says Zaya says I think it's the girls one of the Runaways.
Oh.
But
Maybe.
I'm like,
I don't. I mean,
Molly?
yeah. I mean, it could be Molly, but she has like the.
yeah, Magic. There's a someone said that's Molly, isn't it? I didn't
Okay.
think she had the mouse
I
ears though
think
on
Magic
that beam.
checks out.
And
though.
I did read some of the comics of Runaways after the season. Just sort of reread like the first book basically, and I don't remember that, but I trust our people in the chat if they feel like it's Molly. That's a great character. So, but that's a great example. So, Kari, you hear this. And has it, like I asked Amy, is it the sort of thing that in the moment you've seen these movies and you're just like, where are all the girls at? Where are the women at? And it's like, you have the characters and it's not worse to just show a little of them and then stop than as opposed to having none in there. But it makes you very conscious of the fact.
It was more that there were a lot of scenes where it's a whole bunch of guys and no ladies present.
Yeah.
That's where I'd be like, aren't there girl fighters? Like, where'd they go?
Right. Like when we
aren't there more that we could incorporate? So maybe even not necessarily just more scenes with who we had, but other people. Like there's this scene, and I mean, And there was a lot going on, but still, like, one of the scenes that right now I'm just thinking of is when Doctor Strange and I think it's Iron Man and they first are fighting, like, on the city streets after they met. I'm like, some other female could be present and join them for a little bit of the fight or something, you know? It's like, nobody else around?
They felt like it was important for it to be Spider-Man, and I guess they just went with popular. But, yeah, I mean, if you think of when we first met Black Widow and Iron Man 2, like, that's such a great, like, sequence. And then she doesn't get... as often does she get like something that's cool like that. She always has a sequence, except I think for whichever movie she was pregnant during. I think that it was a lot of like wide shots of her like kicking somebody from afar or something. But I don't know. I think it's an interesting point, and it's obviously something that they're aware of because they have these female-led movies coming out, and I don't think that makes up for the fact. But it's like, well, at least they're going to do something about it, and
step in the right direction.
Yeah. And I mean, to have the Wasp, who is, a character that's been around for almost 60 years, I think, longer in the comics.
And it's not like there isn't plenty of women to choose from, too.
And it is always the example that, the MCU is kind of overshadowed by the fact that the X-Men movies usually have a lot of sequences because there are so many great female characters from the X-Men in those movies. Anyway, that was just a little diversion, but let us know what you think and how excited you are for those two movies. Ant-Man and the Wasp, which is, it's like a month away.
Yeah, that was
Look at that.
Fast.
That is fast.
8th.
Yeah, so it's not quite, it's a little bit more than a month, but almost a month. And Captain Marvel will be in March. Anyway, I would say that now it's time to transition to the review of Season 2, Episode 9 of Legion. And interesting that we transition from a conversation about the ladies when we really get to see what's been going on with Melanie this season.
Finally.
Which is Jean Smart's character. And this is a very interesting episode. We get to see a little bit of what Lenny's up to and some, very tastefully done quick cuts. But still some crazy stuff happening there. For, broadcast network, cable, whatever you call it. It's not premium cable. It's essentially basic cable. But when we got the extra episode, I feel like this is the extra episode we got because it's like, all right, let's kind of take some time and explain how everybody ends up there instead of them just all showing up, which you could probably go from last week to next week. And
also, there was no John Hamm.
There was no John Hamm, and David was barely in it.
Yes.
Which I think is interesting because, and it's fine. Look, there was an episode where there were like 10 Davids. So, it's fine. It'll average out.
Got a bit more of the Carries.
And one singing mouse. Yeah. That's true. We had some good Carrie stuff. And I don't know. Let's start with you, Carrie. What did you think of this episode?
I like that we got some more information answered, but it definitely wasn't as exciting as the last one. But it was nice to wrap up some information because, like, what is Melanie been up to? But I kind of think it gives you more questions because you're like, wait, what is the weird Minotaur thing? What exactly is it they're all smoking with these vapes? And then also, is Oliver and Melanie working together, or is he using her, and is Farouk using her? Like, those are interesting questions that you're not quite sure on yet. Like, the hopeless romantic in me is like, no, Oliver and Melanie are working together, and they're totally gonna, like, get away from Farouk's plan, and they'll be able to do something on their own. But it's hard to say.
Well, I mean, Oliver's decisions and actions are not entirely his own at this point. He's very much a pawn of the Shadow King. So if he has to sort of, it could definitely be sort of like a double agent kind of thing where he's like, I'm totally helping you. Don't worry. Look at this. But he did tell Farouk that he's going to kill him. So I'm still convinced that we're going to see that, or at least an attempt of that. And we'll see if it works out. Amy, what did you think of this week's episode of Legion?
I liked it a little bit more than last week.
Okay.
So there's that.
So you got, did you like some of the background into how all of our characters ended up in this weird desert location?
Yeah, but Lenny's eyes are still bothering me.
Oh, those fake contacts drive me nuts.
Oh, and I'm also binge watching Parks
You like
and
those
Rec.
eyes. They're new.
Yeah. So right now, binge watching Parks and Rec and then seeing her here. It's kind of cool though. So I'm
that is weird.
Well, because Lenny, wait, how far into Parks and Rec are you?
I'm on season 4.
Okay, so Lenny and Star-Lord are married at that point?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good.
Oh
Yes.
my god.
So,
It's fantastic.
right. Yeah, exactly. I'm glad that Tony appreciated that. Anyway, so yeah, I just think it's interesting to get to see these things. A lot of times, unless it's like a great episode of Legion, the middle of the road, like average episodes, you just feel like, oh, this will work so well when somebody's binging it after the fact, because it's like, if you're going to plow through 4 of them, the fact that you have this story that advances.
It's almost a filler episode.
Yeah, because like the story advances only like a couple seconds from last week, and that's not the first time this season where they've done that.
Yeah.
Because we have the episode with all the Sid's backstory and the episode with all the Davids. Each of those times, the story barely advanced from the week before. So it's great to be able to do this stuff. It's like to pretend that I'm smart and well read. If you ever were to actually read Moby Dick, the book. Like every 3rd chapter isn't telling the story. It's like if you were to be on a whaling ship and need to know how to do these things, you'd read those chapters because that's actually who the books were written for.
That's important.
Well, yeah, it's like, so how to gut a whale, and it's really specific. I read it when I was in high school. I don't really remember very well, but I remember that they have. So this is basically like the off chapters of Moby Dick. So that, I mean, that's
Sure.
It all ties
So
in
in a
together.
sense, they're like supplemental.
Yeah,
to,
exactly.
Like, the overall story.
Were there any particular moments, any favorite moments that really stood out for you in this episode, Kari?
I was just trying to think of that. It was really interesting to see young Melanie.
I did think that was fairly interesting.
Yeah,
Gorgeous.
that was like, oh, okay. And like, I don't want to say old Melanie is the other one, but present Melanie versus
Well,
past Melanie.
I don't know if you noticed, but in the credits, that actress was listed as younger Melanie.
Younger.
Which I think is a nice touch. It didn't just say young Melanie.
Yes.
It said younger Melanie. And I was like,
Yes.
well, there you go. Very nice.
Yeah,
It's very respectful. Yeah.
Because it's like, it just sounds rude to be
Yeah.
like older.
I mean, she's obviously
she
a lot
is,
younger, but it's still
literally.
nicer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Mature. But even
Yeah.
that's like almost
Like
borderline.
chronologically
I
advantaged.
think getting the pieces of David's plan into place was very exciting, especially. Oh, actually, no, that's what I love this episode. I loved his sister being sassy and not taking any shit from Lenny.
Yeah.
That was so rewarding because before she's just kind of like, okay, and just a little more in herself. But now Lenny has control of her body, essentially. She's like, no, you need to do what David said to do and stop messing things up.
I liked the dynamic between the two of them because Lenny's like, look, if you're going to be along for the ride, you're going to see some crazy stuff. And then also Amy. God, I was just like, that's his sister's name, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's your name.
That's my name.
I knew it was your name, but I like blanked for a
So
second.
you
Yeah,
forgot my name too.
Yeah,
Amy.
Amy.
maybe.
I'm hurt. It's
yeah.
fine. I'll
So
get over
Lenny
it.
over here. No, Amy was just like, I'm not going anywhere. It's like I'm here. Like you. I know you didn't do this yourself, but you're in my body, and I'm not going to leave. So I think that's interesting, and I hope that we see a lot more of that dynamic in the next couple episodes. And I didn't mention this in the news because I wanted to tie in here, but it was announced this week that there will be a season 3 of Legion. I had every expectation that there would be, but it's nice to get the official announcement. I know Amy, not David's sister, Amy Cassandra Martinez,
That's me.
is a little complacent towards that.
I'm gonna give it a try.
But see, do you
It's
think you
fine.
would like the show better if you could binge it instead of having to wait?
No, heck no.
You think that would be worse?
Yeah, because I had to do that for the first season.
Oh, that's right, you
and
did.
It was just like, cannot compute too much.
It's
Stop.
a little bit of sensory overload.
So,
But it's
yeah.
so pretty.
It's
It's
very
gorgeous.
pretty.
It's so beautiful.
I did like when Kari was talking to Melanie and was just like, yeah, so what? Like, just her, like, answer
Yeah,
for
what's the
everything.
problem?
Yeah, what's the so? I thought that was actually one of the more entertaining moments
Yes.
in the show. Anyway,
She's
we've
not
got
there for that pity party.
we've got 2 more episodes of Legion. So next week we won't be talking about the finale. We'll be talking about the penultimate episode, which is a fancy way to say the episode before the end. But next week we will also be talking about the premiere of Cloak and Dagger. There will be And it's a 2-part premiere. So, Amy, you've seen the first 4 parts, and we'll talk to you about that in a little bit. You don't have as many weeks to get a new episode now that I know. I didn't realize that they were showing the first 2 on Thursday. On Freeform, a channel that I have never set the DVR to record something on.
Really?
Yeah, they don't make a lot of shows for me, believe it or not. Although, you know what, maybe during 25 Days of Christmas, I may have recorded like a, Rudolph's Shiny New Year, probably.
I was gonna say Rudolph, Frosty the Snowman.
Yeah, Rudolph,
all those animated claymation
Rudolph and
Love
Frosty.
those.
Yeah.
Frosty, man.
There's some
Almost
good
makes me
stuff
cry.
in there. But anyway, so I wanted to take a couple of moments, though, and we'll talk a little bit about Cloak and Dagger. And the first image that we need, we can look at this one because Anthony has been kind enough to bring it up. And it is indeed, that is from their 4-issue miniseries. They had a few different series over the years. And they actually did an interesting thing at one point in the late 80s where both Cloak and Dagger and Doctor Strange had their own standalone books, and they both sold kind of okay. So what they did is they canceled both of those books, and they did something called Strange Tales, and it was half a story every month, half a Doctor Strange, half a Cloak and Dagger. And it was something that used to happen all the time in the 60s, and I don't think it worked particularly well. There was a solo Avengers title that they did that with too, but I don't know. I always liked the characters. I thought it was just a really interesting concept, and we do indeed first meet them in Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man number 64, which is from 1982, and as I said earlier at the top of the show, that does in fact mean that these characters have been around for a very long time, and I know that they've been on animated series and things, because that's probably not Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, but the 90s Spider-Man and maybe some of the more recent ones. I don't know, Anthony, if you've seen Cloak and Dagger on any of the animated shows.
No, I was trying to remember the one from the 90s. I can't really remember them being in that one.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to use the characters if you're going to really tell the story of them, because it's sort of like they're tested on by this corporation they're basically like synthetic heroin is tested on them, and then they sort of retcon their backstory that they were mutants, and that's why they were able to survive the testing, whereas no one else did, and they ended up with these powers. But we'll talk very briefly about how they meet in the comics, and then we'll spend some time talking about the show itself. But basically, Tyrone Johnson is Cloak, and he runs away from home. And when he does, he ends up in New York City. And as soon as he arrives at the Port Authority bus terminal, he sees a rich girl, Tandy Bowen, who is Dagger, who also ran away. And he's thinking like, well, if I just steal this rich girl's purse, I'll probably get some money. And then somebody else tries to rob her and steal her purse. And then, good guy that he is, he stops them, and they end up being friends. And then it's kind of awkward to rob your friend. I don't know, I would say. But anyway, they get kidnapped, and that's where the testing starts, and they end up as Cloak and Dagger. Now, in the weeks ahead, we'll talk sort of about how the powers work, because I'm not quite sure how they're going to work on the show. But the coolest thing about Cloak's cloak to this sort of other realm, for lack of a better term in there, is that the thing that he would do a lot of time is he would just sort of open the cloak, and anybody who's shooting a gun, well, the bullets would go in there and not hit him. And it was a way to just sort of, keep people safe from the bullets. Anyway, we can talk a little bit more about them in terms of comic books, but because Amy has seen 4 episodes of the TV show, I'd like to let you talk a little bit about what your expectation was going into it, what you like about it, and obviously not spoilery, but what do you think works best about the show? And the fact that you've seen 4 of them, so you're going to know more than even those of us who watch for the first time on Thursday.
Going in to seeing the first 4 episodes, especially them being on Freeform, I was a little hesitant that it would be a little too cheesy or not mature. Like I wasn't expecting it to be some fancy Netflix kind of a thing. I don't need it to be super serious, but I wanted it to be good. And then also, I wasn't really familiar with these 2 actors. And so, okay, let me make sure I get their names. It's Olivia Holt and Aubrey Joseph. And Olivia plays Dagger, and Aubrey plays Cloak. And yeah, after watching the first 4 episodes, I think they did a really good job. It was really... I saw them the day before I spoke with them, and I was really, really into it, really involved. The way that it looks expensive. So it does not look cheap at all. And they do such a good job that they work really well together. Seeing Aubrey and Olivia, like interact in real life, really, I feel helped their performance as Cloak and Dagger. Aww. So like, there's a picture that Anthony's gonna be showing us. But yeah, like they're really good together. All of the characters, the way that they're introducing them in the first 4 episodes, they do a good job where they don't all just like throw them at you and you're kind of overwhelmed. The first episode especially, I would say, they really set a nice base for everyone. And I think that people should give it a try because it's not your typical Marvel TV show. I think it's good, honestly, for all ages, and I think younger audiences will definitely appreciate this. And I think that even like us older people that are.
Why'd you look at me when you said that?
I did not. I looked.
I saw her look at me.
I looked at myself. What are you guys talking about?
Well, a couple things. One, Starger says, well, kind of comparing Runaways and Cloak and Dagger. Would you say they're similar all-age vibe? Because Runaways was kind of all ages as well.
I mean, I haven't seen Runaways, but I.
Well, that's right. You weren't here yet. I forgot.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I've been watching everything, but what I've seen from Runaways, it feels like it's a little bit younger.
I think you would like
even
Runaways, by the way.
Oh, yes.
That's what I've heard.
And now that we're in the summer, there's a lot less Marvel shows, although,
Yes.
Luke Cage season 2 is coming soon. So.
Well, Black Magic 99 agrees or is happy about your comment because good to know because I'm really hesitant about this show. Also, rewind just a hair. Quite a few people in the chat. Thank you very much for pointing out that the Cloak and Dagger were in Spider-Man animated series on the Disney XD show.
So it's that one, not the 90s one.
Not the 90s one.
I knew that I'd seen them. I'd come across
Ultimate
them, but
Spider-Man.
that's the one.
I was about to say I haven't finished the whole series.
Thank you
so
very much for the chat. Thank you.
That's cool though.
Yeah, no, Ultimate Spider-Man had a lot of characters. There's a couple episodes with all of the Guardians of the Galaxy, the ones from the movie. So yeah, the Ultimate Spider-Man actually had, I don't know, and like Nova was one of his best friends, I think.
Oh yeah, in the first 2 seasons, his core team is Power Man, Nova, White Tiger,
Danny Rand's
Iron
there,
Fist,
right? Yeah.
And I believe that's all of them.
Yeah, so I mean, it's I don't know, and there's a different one now that I think is just called Disney Spider-Man. But anyway, well, thank you for all of that insight. And what were you going to say about
couple little things. One, it is also not set in New York. If
Interesting.
you do some digging, you will find out where it is. But
I know where it's
Is
set.
it a nondescript city? Or?
No,
It is supposed to be something.
It is.
Okay, cool.
And I think
It's Gotham City. So weird. No.
it really adds, I think, to the storyline, and it goes into a place that we're not really familiar with as Marvel fans.
And I
which
think
And
that'll
is it-
also help them not have to worry about, because they're basically standalone on Freeform all by itself, which, yes,
Right.
Freeform is part of ABC, part of Disney, all that. You're not going to run into anybody else. And if you're where they are, which we'll see, I think, in the premiere, because I know where they are because I read it. And I think that'll work.
Oh, I see in the chat too.
It's all right. People in the chat can spoil things.
Well, they said it's on the trailer.
I had an interesting character thing that I'm wondering, and this isn't really a spoiler, but Tyrone, before his cloak, has a really bad stutter, which I think is sort of an interesting thing. Is that something that you see in the show? I feel like it's probably not, but when he's not Cloak, he's very just sort of shy and withdrawn, and he ends up having a stutter. So
he is shy and withdrawn. I don't honestly. I can't remember if he
well, there
does.
you go. So if he did, then
if he did, it's not super obvious. And I know Zayas Bilu was worried about the show being too cheesy, and because no. I would remember if it was like really cheesy and it's
when
not.
I first heard about it, and when we did our first episode of the show back in September, we knew that this was going to come out, and it was one of those ones where it's like, look, I'm going to watch it, but for Freeform, I would have to admit to being very nervous that they're not making. I mean, look, Freeform doesn't make shows for me. That's
they made
fine.
Dead of Summer, and that was actually a really cool horror show.
See, I don't even know that show, but
we had an after show here for that one.
For that show,
Yeah, for that one.
Look at that.
That was a while ago, but that one was like teen horror summer camp slasher that was actually really good.
Wow, that sounds good. That sounds like something that you'd like, Anthony.
Did you watch Dead of Summer?
No, this is the first time I've heard about this.
Really?
That sounds like your kind of show.
I'm not a Freeform.
Well, the advertisement was
Seriously?
like the like a tire rope swing, but it only had legs dangling out, no body. Because then you're like, wait, is it slasher? Are there ghosts? Is it haunted? And they kind of explore all those things, which is just very rewarding.
Also, talking about not being Freeform kind of people or not, I just read earlier this week that the episodes of Cloak and Dagger, I don't know what the turnover is. They'll end up on Hulu. I don't know if it's like a week later. I don't know if it's in time to do the show on Sunday night, Carrie. But
Sometimes it can be the day after.
yeah, sometimes it can be, but I don't
Yeah.
know if they're gonna give Freeform like a week to rerun them or whatever.
Yeah.
So keep tabs on that. But so that'll be good for the unplugged of you out there who don't, what do you call that when you cut the cord?
That's me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Over
okay.
the
There we
top.
go. Well, Zaya said Dead of Summer was like Scream on MTV mixed with American Horror Story on FX type of feel. Kinda. Well, Yell in the chat says he doesn't have a stutter in the show, by the way.
There you go.
Thank you, Yell.
And that's a great transition. And Amy, I'm going to let you set this up because you're the one who sent it to me.
Yes, this
we
is
have some on the scene reporting from Yell. So make sure that you accurately set this up.
Oh, no pressure, right? So yes, Yell got the chance to speak with them. This is a bunch of characters from the show. Some you'll recognize, some you won't yet. But yeah, she got to talk to them, and this is it's a small little clip of a bunch of questions and answers and fun stuff.
As far as hopes go, there's so many hopes that I want for not just me, but I think for this world. And I think some of the things that we're discussing in our show is hitting all of those points. And I hope people are moved by it, not just entertained, but moved and impacted and inspired.
I feel like if I'm using it to help other people, 'cause I feel like what's happening, the tragedy, the trauma that this family's been through, is playing out today in the media. You see so many things happening, and people, go in the media for a couple of days and then it'll be gone. But I think this humanizes these things, and people can really get to know a family, get to know a African American family. See them go through this trauma and realize that this thing is going to affect them for the rest of their lives. It's more than just a hashtag. And it's more than just 2 days on television.
Oh, well, that'll tell you where they were.
The city is that it has so many different looks to it, and one of the things that we try to do at Marvel Television is to make sure that the city becomes a character in the show. And for us, it doesn't look like any of the other shows that we're doing. New Orleans brought a flavor into itself in terms of not just the street life, but whether it's down by the water or whether it is, just the trailer park area that her mom lives in, like all of those things, as Jeannie would say, feel authentic, and that makes a difference as you're watching the show.
Ta-da! Yay!
Well, thanks, Yell, for sending us that. It's great to actually see the people on camera, the people behind the scenes. And I don't know, it's I was already excited for the show, but it's the fact that I've talked to Amy and a few other people who have seen a few of these episodes. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's it should be a fun one. And yeah, if it's now we know that it's set in New Orleans, we'll actually mention it.
Yes.
The fact that, I mean, because look,
cool
the Netflix shows are very much in New York. I mean, New York is such a part of the show. So I like the idea that it's somewhere else. And, to some extent, I don't know if you'd agree, Kari, but you really feel like, obviously, The Runaways is very clearly set in L.A., and I think that they worked with the different parts of the city, throughout the course of the first season, at least.
Oh, yeah. Definitely Runaways is very Los Angeles, and I think they did a good job of capturing that. I'm just really excited to see this in New Orleans because I just recently went there, that I'm like, oh, I'm excited to see how they film it because it's very, it does have a very distinct, unique feel, and it's a very beautiful city.
I'm a big fan of New Orleans. I have friends who live there. You go every couple of years or so. So it'll be great. Anyway, so that will be this Thursday, I believe, at 8 o'clock Eastern and Pacific. Central, I guess, 7? See, I know these things. On Freeform. So, and again, not clear when it's on Hulu. So if you're waiting for it on Hulu, make sure you know how many days after it airs it's going to take. So if you did cut the cord, find a friend with basic cable and break into their house. No, watch it with them. Maybe buy them a pizza
viewing
or
party.
Anyway, so it'll be interesting to see. Now, the Cloak and Dagger that I'm familiar with are very much a part of the Marvel Universe. When they show up in Spider-Man, they're much like really hard-edged sort of vigilante types. And over the years, when they ended up in their own titles, plural, I think they had to kind of soften them a little bit. But, there's a book that they did where it was a team up with the team Power Pack, which we've mentioned on this show before, which is 2 brothers, 2 sisters. They're all kids between 5 and 12. So, and the New Mutants. There's a great New Mutant story with Cloak and Dagger where Cloak and Dagger end up without their powers, and Sunspot and Wolfsbane from the New Mutants end up with their powers. It's part of the Chris Claremont, Bill Sienkiewicz run of New Mutants. It's right before Legion gets introduced, I think a couple months before. Anyway, stuff worth finding. And yes, let's get some final thoughts from the chat.
Yes, thank you very much, everybody in the chat chiming in on this. Howling Wolf says Freeform usually puts episodes from their shows on Hulu the next day.
Great.
And then Star Drew says probably the Friday morning, so either next day or something like that. And then Zayas Bilu also points out that probably some of the same sets or locations as True Blood and CW's originals. So
I mean, there's been a lot of filming in New Orleans in recent years, movies and television. I think that they lost the tax break, but you still get some shows filming there. But there's a ton of stuff there within the last decade. Anyway, so that's we'll talk a lot more about that next week. We'll talk about the penultimate episode of Legion. That'll be episode 10. We'll talk about that next week. And then the week after, it'll be the Legion finale, a little bit more Cloak and Dagger. And then, like I said, before you know it, we are going to have Luke Cage Season 2. So there'll be a lot to talk about over the summer. So stay with us. Don't tune out just because you think there aren't as many shows. There's always some Marvel show on TV. Let's see when we get to the point where there's nothing. I bet that it won't be for very long, because before you know it, The Gifted will come back, Michael Shirley's favorite show. And speaking of Michael Shirley, because he was on the show last week, I did not give a gift to Amy because it was all about Michael. Now it's awkward because last week I gave gifts to Michael, and this week I'm giving them to Amy, and I have nothing for Kari. And Kari gave me a great Star Trek Captain Kirk with the Tribbles Christmas ornament. So I'm going to have to get Kari something soon. But both Amy and Michael have been on my personal podcast, The Blackcast. So I think that I'm within my rights to just wait for you to be on the podcast.
I know, right? I got to get on that.
I have 2 things for you. First of all, Amy now has her very own Blackcast t-shirt. So please show that off to the camera. And so that's what you get. And because, as we've talked about on the show, Amy's always doing her homework, doing all of her reading for some of the great stories of the Marvel Universe. This is the Dark Phoenix Saga. Yes, it's Uncanny X-Men's 129 through 137.
Nice.
What I have said on this show, the best story in comic books history, hands down.
Oh my God.
Maybe when you're done, you can share it with Kari. And I think that Anthony in the booth downloaded it and still hasn't read it. But, if you want to borrow Amy's, you can ask her. I don't know if she'll let you. It's up to her.
I'll charge you, but
yeah,
that's fine.
there'll be a rental fee.
I already have it.
Daily fee.
But you haven't read it yet, is my point.
I know. I'll get
Yeah.
you.
So, anyway, so there you go. Well, happy birthday, and I didn't want to take away from Michael's last show, so I saved it for this week. He's going to watch this and be like, all I got was a t-shirt. Anyway, so...
But it was her birthday, so...
That's true. It was your birthday. Anyway, and happy birthday again, because why not?
Thank you.
In any
Happy
case,
birthday.
we are out of time. We've gone over time once again, but thanks to everybody in the chat. Some great feedback. And if you're watching the archive version, comment in the YouTube chat for all of the things that we talked about,
Down
especially
below.
those tattoo ideas.
Oh,
Down below.
yeah.
You can find me at ChristianDMZ, Twitter and Instagram. Amy, where do people find you?
On all social media at Amy Cassandra MTZ.
And Kari?
Yeah, you guys can find me online at Kari D Lane. That's KARIDLANE. And tune in Westworld. We have special guests. We had Abernathy, Lewis Hertham, in the studio, and got to pick his brain. And if you saw the episode, it's a wonderful and bad pun.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, that sounds gross. And as I mentioned, my personal podcast, Blackcast, BLADTCAST.com. The most recent episode, we talked about Solo, a Star Wars story. And on Popcorn Talk, I was on Anatomy of a Movie, also talking about Solo, a Star Wars story. And in the booth, Anthony is at TonyB_. Maybe he's going to change it again. We were talking about that. Find out next week. But until then, Excelsior!
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Keven Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.